Here we are, the middle of July. It's summertime in the orchard, and let's take a walk around and look at the difference between good suckers and bad suckers. Blackberries, blueberries, raspberries, figs, pomegranates, basically anything not grafted, usually want to allow the suckers to grow because that's their natural life cycle to replace the older canes or stalks. Apples, peaches, pears, plums, jujubes, citrus trees, basically anything that's grafted, you do not want them suckering because that's only going to pull energy away from what you're trying to grow and can even eventually take over the tree where you don't even have left the original plant. So that's the difference between good suckers and bad suckers. What exactly am I talking about when I say suckers? Well, for instance, this fig tree here, as you can see, those little sprouts there, those are suckers come up from the base of this fig tree. Now on figs, this is actually what we call good suckers because the more these sprout, the bushier this tree will become, and in the long run, the more productive, the more branches this fig tree will have. So those are actually what we call good suckers. Let's take a look at some others that are good as well. Blackberries are another prime example of plants you want to sucker. All right, now if you look closely, they're just suckering like wildfire. All right, and actually these new suckers that came in just this year that look vibrant and green, those are going to be what produces next year on a floricane blackberry bush. This particular one here is a Natchez. Okay, now as you can see, this is the old stock. See how they're starting to brown out? And we'll actually have that in a different video of how to trim blackberries, but these are spent now. We will cut these off at the ground and only leave the new suckers. Blueberries are another example of a type of plant you want to sucker because the suckers are actually going to replace the oldest canes at the 5 to 7 year mark. So you can see this is sprouting up there, this one here, there's a baby sucker right there, and eventually this will be the blueberry bush as the older canes get over 5 to 7 years old and we cut them out and allow those suckers to take over. Pomegranates are another example of a bush you want to allow suckering at the base. Now that we know what good suckers are, let's talk about bad suckers. Beside me here, I have a young jujube tree, and they are very bad about suckering at the base. This particular sucker is actually just above the graft, so this is a Lee jujube, but still it's at the base, and we want this more of a tree, so we're going to cut that off. All right, and then beside it here, this is actually the rootstock sucker. You see it coming up from the ground below the graft line, and this would just be a seedling anyway, so we want to really cut that out and really monitor the situation over the next few years and try to keep this base from suckering as least as possible, because that just ends up pulling energy out of the top growth and becoming something that you don't want in the orchard, an inferior fruit, as well as inhibiting aggressive growth on the tree you do want. Citrus trees, those are another prime example of trees grafted, so you don't want any suckering. Beside me here is a young Bloom Sweet grapefruit. Now last winter was hard on it. It's a young tree and we did see temperatures as low as 16, and a lot of times that will stress out a young tree. As you can see, the rootstocks growing, these little 3-finger leaves versus these larger single leaves. Okay, so it's very common to see people with very large rootstocks growing and they're still not getting any fruit, and they go, Bill, what's the matter with my citrus tree? Or it could be any grafted tree. And then I asked them what the leaves look like, and they described this thorny 3-finger leaf. And there you go. What happened is years ago the tree got bit back by a hard frost and the suckers began growing, and they didn't realize that was the rootstock taking over until it was too late, and all they had is the rootstock left without the original tree. So it's very important to cut your suckers off because they can just really take over and also pull energy away from the good growth. Plum cots. check this sucker out. It is what, 4 feet from the actual plumcot tree? Another example of a root suckering, which of course that's the rootstock because plumcots are grafted, so we would not want that to grow. And also, while we're at, we'll come over to the base and get the rest of these suckers out. That's growing. Because they're doing nothing but taking energy out of the tree, and they're never gonna ever become anything worth growing. Don't let your pear tree sucker. All right, anything coming from the base, go ahead and cut it off and get rid of that bottom growth there. Apple trees, those are more bad suckers. Don't let stuff grow up from the bottom on your apple trees because they're grafted, and that's nothing but the rootstock growing. If you liked what you saw, subscribe to us on YouTube. We also have a website, tendedgardens.com, and don't forget to hit us up on Facebook.